Good evening, everyone. I'm Roy Pennell, Councillor for Ameliasburg Ward, and I will be chairing the meeting tonight. Tonight, we're meeting at Council Chambers in Shire Hall. Members of the public who wish to speak at a Planning and Development Committee meeting are invited to register with the clerk's office in advance. These meetings are public meetings as required under the Planning Act and will deal with the planning applications listed on the agenda. Tonight's agenda lists all the items before the committee for consideration. Copies of the agenda have been posted on our website. The recommended motions on tonight's agenda are shown in bold. Tonight's meeting is being live streamed, and any participation in the meeting proceeding will become part of the public record. The recording from the meeting will be published on the county's website immediately and can be viewed by selecting the live stream tab on the bottom right of the county's homepage at thecounty.ca. Personal information collected as a result of this public meeting is collected under the authority of the Planning Act and will be used to assist in making decisions on these matters. For each item listed on the agenda under Section 4, I will ask whether staff, applicant, or agent, a member of the public, or council has a question or concern regarding the item. If there are no concerns or questions from anyone, I will order the matter and recommendations to be added to Section 5, Consent Agenda, Items for Consideration. Under Section 5, I will call for a motion to approve all items and any associated recommendations as a single motion. The minutes from this meeting shall report matters approved as part of the consent agenda. If there are concerns or questions from staff, applicant or agent, member of council, or a member of the public has registered to speak, the item and its recommendations will be moved to Section 6. Items for consideration. Under Section 6, the committee will hear these comments where each item will be discussed and voted on individually. The Planning and Development Committee will make recommendation to approve with conditions or to deny a planning application. Council has the final say on application. All bylaws on this agenda will be enacted at the next available council meeting. Following council's decision, notice will be circulated in accordance with the Planning Act. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of council to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the municipal clerk. Before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. As we start the meeting, I would say that we all have different opinions. So I ask respect for one another and ask that there be no clapping, no cheering or jeering, as it does not affect the outcome, and quite frankly, it's not allowed within our procedural bylaw. Having said that, I would look for a motion to confirm the agenda. Councillor Roberts and Councillor Engelsdorfer, would you read the motion, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a Roberts-Engelsdorfer motion that the agenda for the Planning Committee meeting of December 13, 2023 be confirmed.
All in favor? Carried. I'll ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest. Having seen none, we'll move on to 4.1. Official plan amendment as base 31, 343, County Road 22, 204, Kingsley Road, Township of Hallowell. And I'll now ask staff if they have anything to add to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hopefully everybody can hear me clearly, and appreciate the opportunity to present tonight. I'm Steve Willis from Stantec Consulting Limited, and for the purpose of this file, I've been retained by the county to assist in the planning review of this file, and I prepared the report that's before you tonight, and I'm here to answer any questions on that report. I have a very brief presentation to just go over the highlights of what's in the report, and then be here to answer any questions as a result of your questions or anything coming from the deputations before you.
Excuse me, if when you're talking, if you could talk directly into the mic, then
Sure.
people at home can hear.
Perfect. Councillor Pennell, since there are staff comments on this application, could we move this matter to item 6 for items for consideration?
Yes, I'll ask for staff comments.
Perfect. So we'll move this to item 6 and we'll move forward with staff comments. And is there's anybody from the public here to speak to this matter as well? Perfect. So we'll do staff first and then the applicant, and then we'll hear from members of the public.
So thank you, Chair. This is regarding official plan amendment for base 31, and it is the actual request for your decision on whether to approve or not the official plan amendment application as requested by the applicant, as negotiated by staff. So first of all, the location map, which council saw, or committee saw this presentation before when council endorsed the area concept plan a few months back. That has only changed in one manner, in that there were lands originally shown to the east that were outside the urban boundary in the rural industrial lands. Those have been removed through discussions between staff and the applicant because it would not currently comply with the provincial policy statement to bring those in. There remains a minor amount of land on the west side of the site that is a minor technical correction of the boundary, and those lands are not intended for residential or mixed-use development. Those lands in the area concept plan are shown for a stormwater management pond and green space as part of the master concept plan, but because they're part of the overall site development infrastructure, we thought it was appropriate to include them within the boundaries of the site. So this is the location for the plan. Again, an aerial photograph of the condition as it existed when the photo was taken a few years ago. Again, it's the redevelopment of the old base 31. The central area of the original base buildings being converted into a revitalization area with new communities being built in the former airfield lands and surrounding lands that are also part of the property holding. So there are three recommendations before you today. The first is the council receive the report that's before you. The second is that you approve official plan amendment for OPA 0423 affecting all the lands in the county, and then a bylaw be brought forward to council's next meeting for approval. Just to give you a quick overview of the policy basis and the considerations of the amendment. First of all, this application is consistent with a provincial policy statement. It is also consistent with a Prince Edward County official plan. It technically amends the Picton Urban Center secondary plan and aspects of the main official plan on mapping. And it implements the area concept plan in the area. And as we indicated the last time we were before you, this area has been designated for development since 2015 when the Picton Urban Center secondary plan was approved. So it's been approved for development since 2015. We are now adding the details of what that development looks like through this official plan amendment. So as we I'm not going to read every bullet on the slide, but this does indicate technically which are the various maps, schedules, and text that are amended through this application. So the major issues and responses that came up through both the staff comments, technical circulation to agencies, the public meeting that we held on this matter, and written submissions from members of the public, members of council. Kind of there's a detailed report at the back of the staff report which lists the major categories, but the big themes I wanted to highlight to you. The first was servicing. So the official plan amendment ties all phases of the development to the availability of servicing. And so that this is dependent on a final resolution of the Picton Master Servicing Plan and the Regional Water Strategy, and only the first phase can proceed currently because there's an interim servicing arrangement for that phase. Other phases will have to wait till those other servicing matters are resolved. The second major theme that came up was transportation-related issues, and the plan itself recommends various intersection upgrades. Because a lot of the problems that have been identified in the transportation study are pre-existing problems before this development has occurred in some of the intersection functionality, the applicant has contributed to the Picton Transportation Master Plan update, and that process is going on parallel now to look at all of the various transportation upgrades that will be required in the area and study that and thoroughly, and there have been some kickoff of that process in its beginning as we go. That study will identify further upgrades that may be required and the full build out of this and other development in the area over time, and because this is a gradual implementation, there's more than enough time to identify these matters and resolve them. But the applicant will be required as each phase comes forward to do detailed transportation work for each phase and identify the transportation upgrades that are attributed to them at each phase. Affordable housing, the applicant is making a 5% affordable housing commitment and is also committing to advancing affordability through a 5-part strategy. It's a fairly detailed strategy which we provided an overview of in the report. The other major issue is concerns about impacts to Picton Main Street. So as more residents move into Base 31 area, the year-round market of population to support local businesses will grow. Base 31 is not trying to create a replica of Main Street. They're trying to identify different types of businesses that would be complementary. And so it's a district activated by arts, entertainment, and destination-oriented businesses and organizations. There will be some limited service amenity-based in the area, and there may be home-based businesses, for example, for professional services and the like because of the mixed-use zoning. But the intention is that with greater population there, it'll support all businesses with more patrons. And so the county staff will continue to work with the applicant as each phase of development comes forward to promote synergies rather than competition, because it's an understandably important issue. That's the end of my formal presentation, and Chair, at the appropriate time, I can answer questions.
Does any member of council have questions at this point? Councillor St. Jean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that brief overview, Steve. With regards to this being an urban boundary expansion, is that true?
Through you, Chair, it is correct that there is a minor boundary expansion to the southwest, and that land that's being brought into the urban boundary is for stormwater management pond and green space. Both of those uses are actually technically permitted in the rural area today, and this amendment is only to make sure people understand that there's a relationship between that infrastructure development and the area as well. It does not generate new lands for development as you might normally contemplate in an urban boundary expansion when you're doing a comprehensive review. It's a technical amendment and a correction to the boundary.
Okay, thank you for that clarity on that.
Councillor Branderhurst.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a quick question about some of the reports, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but I don't see a section in the reports for the environmental assessment or an environmental report that was done on the property. Is that was it missed, or?
Chair, through you, if I can take a second, there is a reference in the report to the Natural Heritage Assessment. I don't have page numbering on this, but it's on the page with the title top says Archaeological Report. There's a reference to the Natural Heritage Assessment just below that in that page of the report. There was also a reference that the Conservation Authority reviewed the staff report and had no comments. And I just go back to my own notes on this, please. And I believe one of the committees of council also reviewed it and had no concerns, and understanding that that one of the advisory committees, I should say, and that as subsequent phases come forward, each of these details about mitigation will be important, but there were no significant natural features of concern.
Go ahead.
Okay, that's helpful. I guess one of my concerns was just with it being an old active airport, specifically in the 30s and 40s, when removal of fuels and oils was not done maybe the best way possible, and what would be potentially that they're building homes and parks on if this was a previous dumping ground and the soil wasn't tested and the area wasn't tested, and what are they adding now, water and more infrastructure to? I would have liked to have that report or something a little bit more deep dived into it. I really appreciate your overviews. For some of them, I would have liked a little bit more comprehensive of a report, though.
So, Chair, I apologize to the council for misinterpreting what the question was about the first time. The applicant has done various studies, and when the applicant's representative comes forward, they can speak a little further on that. At an official plan amendment stage in the approval process, it's not required to have a remediation plan at this stage, but it absolutely is a requirement in further stages if there's actually anything on the property in each individual area. So each area, as it comes forward for subdivision approval and before building permits can be issued, there must be a full review of the environmental conditions, and if there's any matters to be dealt with, they must be addressed by then, and that's county policy. In other manners, it's also provincial policy.
Thank you. Can you actually talk about that process, the process going forward, which is, I don't remember where it's alluded to, but particularly the public consultation process is yet to come, and where the sort of plan in its entirety comes forward in pieces to council?
Through you, Chair. So first of all, like an official plan amendment is a framework plan which sets the overall broad land use permissions. It's implemented through area-specific zoning, with one exception here, which I'll come back to. And then it's also implemented through a plan of subdivision as each area comes up. And in the revitalization area, there may be smaller things like site plan reviews or other forms of planning approvals. Some things within existing built areas may also just be covered through building code, building permit approvals if it's already as of right. So in the community infrastructure housing accelerator request, that would replace the zoning process in so far as the small area of the site that we talked about last time is replaced by the minister's zoning, which sets the zoning rules for the place, but it doesn't take away all of the other requirements as it relates to you know, things like contamination reviews and other sorts of things that are technical requirements prior to any building permit being issued.
So then, as we go forward, the plans of subdivision will be consulted out to the public individually in the zones?
Through you, Chair.
Is that what I'm understanding?
Through you, Chair, the zoning for the remainder of the site, any changes is a public process. Plan of subdivision is a public process which the public can provide input into. Any site plans is also a public process under the Planning Act.
The site plans are not, they're delegated authority here.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, there is no public meeting under the Planning Act under a site plan process, but the public is notified and has the right to provide comments into a process under the Planning Act.
Thank you.
With respect, Councillor.
I neglected to add to the audience that we have several councillors at home. I asked if any of them have questions on this matter. Seeing none, I'll go to Councillor Engelsdorfer.
You nailed it, Roy. Thanks. I'm just trying to picture how this puzzle piece fits into the bigger puzzle as a whole. So I'm wondering if this is premature because we haven't completed the MSP or EA, or we don't have a Picton DC study. So are we making commitments or assumptions before those, and then are we setting something in motion that we can't control or stop at some point?
So through you, Chair, in 2015, Council made a decision to make these lands as development lands within the official plan. So Council made a decision that they would be developed at that time, and your various infrastructure master planning instruments have to implement infrastructure strategies for whichever lands have been designated for development. So with respect, Councillor, I believe that Council made the decision in the past that these lands would be developed. As I tried to indicate with this official plan amendment, it actually provides the detail of what's the nature of that development, what's the form, what's the road structure, what's the land use mix, what's the open space mix. That's the elements that are being added as a layer of detail to the plan. And at any point in time, no development can proceed without a servicing allocation. So whatever process Council takes on its decisions on servicing, any development anywhere in the county that's dependent on that decision will wait till that's resolved.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've got one question myself, and the 5% that is affordable housing, how is that proposed as it moves forward? Is it each section that comes forward, there's automatically 5%? Rather than just saying down the road, we've supplied 5%.
So, Chair, the way what you're allowed to do as a council in terms of making a decision is that it would apply to the entire site, and normally the applicant would bring forward their plans in the order that they wish. But in the Community Infrastructure and Housing Accelerator request, we identified that you wanted early delivery of product for affordable housing, which you normally would not have control over the order of that, and that's what that request is all tied to. So that it's our understanding is with the minister's order, you will get early delivery of affordable housing product, and the applicants here encourage you to ask further questions on how that will happen.
Thank you. No further questions. Councillor Maynard.
Thank you. So In the draft OPA bylaw, states that the policies of this area situate the land as the primary area for growth in Picton over the next 30 years, but we have other areas of growth. What makes this one the primary? Is it just the size or the timing or?
Chair, I do believe it is really related to the area, the issue of size. If that particular word is of a concern to council, I don't think there's a technical reason why we can't find a better word or just remove it. I don't think that the decision is dependent on that, but I think the intent when it was written was just a reflection of the size.
Just for clarification, because this is, so yes, this was considered part of the urban boundary, but it's the uses now, right, that we're kind of, that we're going to delineate a little.
So
in more
Chair,
detail.
if I may, if I refer you to about the 5th page of the report, there is a text description in the Picton Urban Center Secondary Plan, Section 2.6, that described in words what was intended for this site. And it said, the policies of the Heights development area recognize the historic use of the area for employment, aviation, and aviation-related activities, but also recognize the potential for the area to become a more integral part of town development with a range of residential employment, institutional, recreation, tourism, and other uses. These uses may occur at the neighborhood and community scale, and opportunities to establish linkages to more developed areas of the town are encouraged. So there was a verbal description what was intended, and now you have a picture, an actual drawing with major road system, the road system, the open space system, the development areas where housing would actually, or mixed use development would actually happen. So it's, in my opinion, it's, you are getting a clearer delivery of what's intended than that paragraph described.
Okay. I think when those discussions were going on, it was still, you know, they largely considered to be used for employment lands. I mean, you know, they threw all the other possible uses in there, right? But because of our lack of, you know, employment lands, I believe that was the intent. So hopefully that's what we, you know, that we'll get a good share of that as well.
Through you, Chair, I'm not going.
Yeah,
not going to
I know.
comment on the history when I wasn't here for that, but I do believe that Base 31 is already a significant employer in the region, and as their activities grow, they will continue to be a major employment use, and this is more mixed use than most mixed use communities I normally run into.
Follow up, Councillor.
Thank you. Oh no.
Thank you.
Oh.
For sure.
Councillor Nyman, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time for this question, but if not, just tell me it's not. I'm just trying to follow through, and I see the traffic and all the things that need to happen with the various roads around Base 31. And it says in there that the county's doing a transportation master plan. So I'm just trying to figure out how does all this work tie into that, and who's paying for all that?
So through you, Chair, as I let me backtrack a second. So the Transportation Master Plan update is looking at the global issues in the Picton area, of the traffic issues that are even beyond this project. There are problems that exist today, particularly during the high peak periods of the summer. There's some evident issues. There are intersection problems that don't function well. So that's being reviewed, and there are certain ongoing studies at the town to look at, for example, turning circles and other things to try to improve those conditions. The applicant is responsible for what they do to increase the element, and they will be as as this study goes on and we understand more the implications of development, as each phase comes forward, they may be asked to pay for an intersection improvements. They may be asked to pay for road reconfiguration, and may be asked to pay for that. But that will be done at those various subdivision phases as sort of the level of development merits it. And then the county is studying the broader problems and in the issues through the Transportation Master Plan update, and it will bring forward recommendations to council and other improvements.
Quick follow-up? Can I have a quick follow-up?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just what's in the report then, I'm just trying to figure it out. Who identified these, it's on page 11.
Correct.
Who identified these issues here? Did that come out of what the county is already doing, or is that something that the Base 31 has identified?
So through you, Chair, Base 31's transportation consultant, who I believe is online to answer questions later on when the delegation speaks, they identified these improvements. That was their analysis of the various requirements as a result of the number crunching they did on the impacts of the development. These improvements are being validated through the separate process of the Picton Transportation Master Plan update, but this is what the applicant acknowledges needs to be done in the area.
Thank you.
And I believe Mr. Michaud has some further comments to elaborate on my answer.
Any further questions? Yes, Michael Michaud, please.
Yep, through you, Mr. Chair, to council. With the TMP, there's also a major component of that looking at transit, both inside the Picton area as well as throughout the county. So there is some component there that's going to be looking at transit that will hopefully diminish some of the issues that we're going to see as this development comes online, as well as other developments that are located within Picton. So the TMP, the Transportation Master Plan, will look at the totality of how to deal with the issues that we have today and what the issues might be at a later date and how we solve some of those traffic issues, whether it's through roundabouts, turning lanes, transit, whatever the gamut of options are available. And then ultimately council will need to make decisions on how we address some of these concerns moving forward through signalization or roundabouts or other traffic implements.
Thank you. Councillor McNaughton?
Thank you. So I think this goes back to, I think it was Councillor Engelsdorfer asked about sort of how all the pieces fit together and the timing of each piece. And you've explained it to an extent that this can come forward now, but why now when we still do have these big question marks out in the community? And if we are essentially moving forward with an OPA at this time with these terms that are described here, there is some understanding that there's a green means go signalization there that's going to have dominoes sort of knocking over in several different directions. So, and I understand that there's, for development, there's always a time factor, but at the same time, we still have extraordinary impacts to these systems that we're talking about. And I think it would be reassuring to have some understanding about what those impacts are going to look like long-term. And Councillor Engelsdorfer can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's sort of where he was going with his question, is that why wouldn't we be looking for some of the answers for these bigger picture pieces before we move forward with an OPA that asks us to essentially, in one case, sort of do the opposite of what our secondary plan commands? And also, are we going to be automatically triggering a area-specific development charges study and secondary plan review for Picton Hallowell? So these are questions I'm not satisfied I have the complete answer for. And as I understand it, we're going to be seeing a regional, a part of the regional servicing study come forward to us in the very near future. And potentially, I was at the Transportation Master Plan consultation last night and heard that it's anticipated to be a relatively quick process, which, you know, I am suspicious of quick processes in the municipal world, not for any creepy reason, but just entirely because I've learned in just a very few short years here that haste does make municipal waste. So if you can connect those pieces and help understand why the timing is now, when it really doesn't need to be now, when it could wait for those pieces to solidify within a few months, that would be very helpful.
So Chair, through you, first of all, I'll go back to the point I made before, which is the area was identified for development in 2015 as a development area. So in a sense, the ball started rolling at that point in time. What this does is it provides an additional layer of detail, but the actual implementing requirements for any development, any building permit to be drawn, any house to be drawn, and this is a 20 to 25-year development plan. It's not going to happen all at once. It's not like it's a spaceship landing and suddenly we have everything all together. It's going to be a slow trickle build. The only thing that's been advanced is that very first phase, which is primarily the revitalization of existing buildings, plus a small area of development is associated with that. That's the piece that has, I would say, momentum behind it. There is an enormous amount of technical work for every subsequent phase, and it's unlikely that that will get out ahead. And as I said, it can't proceed without a decision on the water. It can't, you know, the Transportation Master Plan update will get done and it will provide things. And we already do have a good snapshot of what's needed for this development through the applicant's report. So it's going to address some broader pre-existing issues, look at the transit issue, look at how we can do modal shift and other sorts of things with transit. But it's my opinion is you have facts before you to make a decision on the principle of land use, but there are many steps between that and a permit being pulled.
Yeah, one quick follow-up, please.
Thank you. All that's understood based on your prior answers. It's more, you know, these are inevitable. These are inevitable technical questions that the public are concerned about, that we don't have a conclusion for or an outcome for. So we don't know what the conversations about the regional servicing approach will be. We don't have conclusions about what the transportation management plan for Picton and this strip of Hallowell are going to involve. We don't know what the outcomes are going to be, and regardless of when these plans are executed, you still have rather narrow options for transportation in what is currently now a very small town. Now, I'm not opposed to, you know, I see that there's a future here that involves quite a lot of development beyond the scope of the town now, but those are realities that exist right now. And those are areas of great concern to the public. So again, it's sort of where's the cart, where's the horse? And I hear what you've said twice, but still, you know, sometimes there's you know, I'm still just not sure why the pieces are rolling out the way they are. And I will reserve further comment and question until maybe a next round, if you would be indulgent, because I still have a question to ask about the secondary plan. Thank you.
Chair, I believe
I
apologize, Chair. I believe Mr. Michaud has a response to this. I mean, I'll give a short technical answer, but I believe Mr. Michaud will get. You have an application before you that's been filed, and council has a responsibility under the Act to make a decision under that. So that's the technical answer. Mr. Michaud has more to. Mr. Michaud has more to say, though, I believe.
Mr. Michaud.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to members of council and committee. Steve took some of the words out of my mouth. Indeed, there is an application. Any landowner has a right to make an application before the county, and then county council needs to deal with that particular application in a timely fashion. Now, what we have to remember is there is still a certain amount of available capacity within our systems within Picton. So this application is simply a way to get towards that allocation, right? An allocation is not given until such time as a subdivision agreement is signed. So this is the first step in this developer moving forward towards submitting a subdivision application, going through all the technical analysis, signing the subdivision agreement, and then being allocated whatever is required to support that development from a water and wastewater system capability. So that's why the applications are before us, to get allocation. We have a policy, I believe it's outlined within the report, EV 900, I believe it is, where developers, they're not guaranteed anything until such time as they submit their applications, and you get an agreement that's signed and registered.
Thank you for that answer.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, the proposed I'd remind you, 10 minutes to get through?
10 minutes
Great,
is good.
thanks.
Thank you very much, Member of Council, Mr. Chair, Mayor Ferguson. It's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Eric Turcott. I'm a planner and urban designer with Urban Strategies, and I've known the county for many years now, and I'm here on behalf of the PEC community. Yes, the PEC community partners, to walk you through the official plan amendment that we have here in front of you today. To put such a plan together, it's been a work of about 2 years so far, since 2021. You could see here we have a long team of members that have been helping to put the plans together, put the studies. A lot of the questions that you have today are being looked at through these. And I'm here today with a couple of my team members. We have Tim Jones, who is with the partnership, as well as Chris Marchese, who is here to answer some of the technical questions, as well we have my colleague Mike from TY Lane, who is also online to answer any of these questions. So over the past 2 years, we spent a lot of time talking to the community, having engagement. We've had we've had a series, we've talked to local businesses, we've talked to local organizations, we had surveys, we have workshops, we drill down on specific issues such as housing, community amenities, transportation. And we had that idea fair that some of you came in the summer, where we attracted over 375 people. These discussion have been very helpful, because they've been helping us to understand, those very specific issues related to Picton, to the county, and help us to formulate the plan. Elements such as, in place and culture. Young families are telling us we want a place that is for season, places that can actually provide amenities for the communities in the winter. In terms of housing, there is a shortage of housing. About looking at increasing the supplies, the diversity, housing for all ages. We also have, in terms of people and economy, in terms of in order to unlock the economic potentials, in making sure we have social infrastructure such as daycare, health and care services. Farm to table, we want to ensure that we are providing, that we're working with the county in terms of to support the agri-business, which I think is a key to to what makes the county such a great place. And We're also looking at, I think people are raised the aspect of being future ready. This is going to be, we have to look at resiliency, our climate challenges, seeing how we can continue to develop a plan that built on that, on transit infrastructure, have the amenities, but also it's going to be a plan that's going to be built over 20, 30 years. So we have to make sure that that the plan is adaptable as we continue to go forward and responsive to the changes that are happening in front of us. That discussion has informed the area concept plan that you have seen, that you have endorsed in September, which is based on enhancing and preserving the revitalization district in terms of also creating an offer of open space. It's the framework and establishes those villages that's going to have the whole range of housing offering. That's the vision. That is taking the area concept plan, what is indicated we needed to do in the secondary plan, and now we're bringing in front of you, translating this vision into the detail, the official plan, which is to bring forward a series of land use and then looking at how the plan, that framework, that's going to be looking at how to continue the evolution of these 255 acres over a period of 20 to 30 years into a place that is going to continue the economic prosperity of the area. As mentioned, it's something that we want the users that are there to be focused on, on entertainment, on culture, to be complementary to what already exists here in town. Also, bringing new housing opportunities in terms of continuing the revitalization of the heritage district, and as well as offering open space and amenities. The OPA detail, as was mentioned by Mr. Lewis, is that the land is already identified as a place for growth in the official plan. It has some designation that already exists in the official plan and in the urban secondary plan as heights development that allows a lot of the things that are already in place. So what it is this is really adding the details to how to continue that evolution over the next 20 to 30 years. The proposed use are mixed use with residential, a wide offering of residential type, including the commercial entertainment culture, really to continue to complement the offering that is already here. We have, we've been working, you have a transportation master plan that's underway it's helping to inform our plan. We are going to continue to work with the county. As it was mentioned, this is not the last time we're going to come and have this discussion here. The plan is going to continue to evolve. But we also are advancing a lot of the active transportation within the plan. And how we can have a structure that helps us to connect to the surrounding, to our surrounding as well. On servicing, as Mr. Lewis mentioned, the development will be phased and will proceed as servicing is available. There is an interim servicing agreement. There is an upfronting by the partnership of $10 million to unlock that first phase of development, including the ongoing works that is happening in the revitalization district. A number of units, it's planned for 7,500 units, and then 5% of which of that housing across the site will be affordable and attainable. Included as part of our package, housing strategies, which we believe is very comprehensive, that focuses on few key things. One is, in addition to that 5%, supply is critical. Prince Edward County is one of the lowest vacancy rate in the province, so increasing supply is quite critical. Increasing the range of housing. There's not a lot of diversity of type of housing, so purpose-built rental having townhouses, granny flat, having places for the elderly. So we're looking at part of our strategies as a full range of housing option, not just one type of housing, which we think is quite critical. And then from an affordability perspective, so having the range, having purpose-built rental, which is something that will be included in the first phase, and then 5% of all units being officially defined as affordable housing. The other thing too is we have some very sophisticated partners within the teams who are also interested in making partnership with nonprofit housing provider who can then, or are very experienced as providing specific housing needs to specific residents. And the other thing is the group is very, knows how to build. They are a builder, they know innovation. So in order to unlock housing, understanding how to build better, faster, looking at modular housing, looking at the different kind of techniques to reduce cost and time is something that is quite, that they are very familiar with and have a lot of experience with. From a timeline perspective, we've been working with the community, with you, with staff over the last 2 years, and it's been a very, very positive experience. We are here today to see the endorsement of the official plan. As Mr. Lewis mentioned, this is a framework. This official plan is to help to allow us to keep going forward to provide the details that we need to continue to do. We're going to continue to have work toward a draft plan of subdivision. All type of other study are going to continue to be provided to continue to support what we're coming at. So this is really the beginning of a journey that is going to continue. And then the intention is to move in the spring toward the draft plan and then start construction in the early 2025 to be able to have some delivery of housing in 2020, toward the end of 2026. So that's why it's quite critical for us to have council and this committee endorse the plan. And with that, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Excuse me. Do we have any questions? Yes, Councillor Nyman.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering the 5% of the 7,500 units. Where did the 5% for affordable housing come from? Because of that 7,500 units, 5% is only 375 units. Why wasn't there 10% for affordable housing?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the 5% is the minimum that's going to be that is being offered. It's through the site, but in addition to it, I think that we want to ensure that our commitment is to offer that wide range of housing offering. To develop a site, to bring the infrastructure, there's a lot of cost. There's a lot of things that we take into consideration, and affordability is something that is key. So again, it's a minimum, and we're going to continue to work with the county to continue to refine the offering.
So, quick follow-up. Can I have a quick follow-up?
Yes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. So those discussions will be held in the future about raising it to 10%, or is this the opportunity for that?
What our commitment is 5% today, based on on provincial policies, based on what we know today. That is what we're committed for through the official plan amendment. But again, we are going to continue to work in terms of making sure that the needs, the type of housing, the diversity of housing, which doesn't exist today, but continue to work to make sure that the products that are being offered are answering the needs of the community.
Thank you.
Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My reservations concerning the definition used for affordable housing, my preference would be not the market definition, but the income definition for those that are genuinely in need. And I would also support a move from 5% to 10%, but I acknowledge that it has been expressed to me as a foundation number, not the eventual number. So I won't repeat myself here. I fully acknowledge that Base 31 is transformative for Prince Edward County. I hold it as a matter of faith that it will be a positive transformation for Prince Edward County, and when the time comes, I'll speak to why I support the official plan agreement as brought forward by staff. I just thought I'd take the opportunity to try and understand the business plan a little bit better. So of the 7,500 units over 25 to 30 years, roughly speaking, because no one can predict the future, we don't be at the racetrack, of the 7,500 units, what number do you have to get to before you've actually reached a break-even point for all project?
Well, I think that this might be a question for one of my partners, but in order to have financial viability, it's an ongoing process that obviously at the beginning you do have to spend more because you have the infrastructure cost, there's all the activation that happened of the restoration, and then as things continue to evolve, there's always going to be involvement, but there needs to be financial sustainability in terms of how things develop. So there has to be in terms of injecting the money in, making sure that the base is vibrant, that we continue to the employment. What is the actual break even? I couldn't answer that question, but I think it's just part of. Oh no, I think it's just it's part of the ongoing business that obviously there needs to be this investment. You can't it needs to make some money at some point.
Go ahead.
I have to believe that you got a number somewhere, or at least an approximate number, but that's your response. So let me ask my supplementary. How many of those units do you have to sell a year, or do you expect to sell annually? Like, what is your sales force telling you? We can sell 200 units a year. What? I'm sure that's not the number, but what would the number be in your, roughly speaking?
Maybe I will because I'm the planner. I will ask my colleague Chris Marchese to maybe come to the microphone and who is involved more directly to these with the numbers.
Thank you. My name is Chris Marchese here on behalf of PEC CPI. Through you, Mr. Chair, to answer your question. It's really a matter of the market, and we can't tell the future in that regard right now. We don't know the exact number of homes that are going to be able to sell on a year-by-year basis because we're just not at that planning phase yet. We are trying to establish that framework as a partnership, and we have given commitment that we are here to help and grow the county and bring economic prosperity there. But at this point, we need to understand that the framework that's being proposed in front of you today is what's going to be going forward, so then we can take that back to what Mr. Willis said and establish in more detail what these subdivisions are going to look like. The typologies in terms of affordability, I think it's important to understand that the 5-part strategy is really to enforce further supply and further options while understanding what the market currently needs. We're not here to come in with large single-family homes. We're looking at creative options that are going to be cost-friendly, that are going to allow individuals to get into the market at a more reasonable price. And we do know that, and that is a principle of ours going forward. But at this time, it's important that we establish this framework that's here in front of you today to go back and establish what these numbers are going to look like and figure out what the absorption is going forward.
Quick follow-up.
Okay, I understand that. So don't have a ballpark on break even. Don't have a ballpark on how many units you expect to sell on an annual basis. So some things to keep in mind after we hopefully approve this. You know, there are developers here with a lot of experience in the county that will tell you today that the county could not absorb more than 180 to 220 units a year. So that's something to keep in mind. And they will also tell you that when it comes to getting trades here in the county, that's another pinch point that needs to be kept in mind as well. But anyway, I am supportive overall. I just was hoping to get a better understanding of the business, but maybe that'll come later.
Through you, Mr. Chair, appreciate the comments. In terms of absorption, we understand that it is a smaller municipality. We are committed to being here long-term and to play that out and make sure that we are able to continue to provide homes on a year-by-year basis, whatever that market is demonstrating, but what it is today to what it might be in 2026 when these dwellings are available could be totally different. And where we are today is different than where we are just 2 or 3 years ago as well. So we're trying to learn it every day and adapt to this market that's in front of us while prepare for the future over the next 24 to 36 months. Thank you.
Any questions from those at home? Go ahead, Councillor Grosso. Councillor Grosso, go ahead. Councillor Grosso, we can't hear you. We're trying to get you tuned in. We still can't hear you.
How about we go to Mr. Mayor and I will work with Councillor Grosso to see if we can get his sound working.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure who this question goes to, but concerning the affordable housing component of the site, and you've mentioned that 5% is a starting point. Now, recognizing that this project is going to evolve over the course of 20 or 30 years, the definition of an affordable house or accommodation is very likely to change. Have you put any thought into, and I assume you probably have, into what you would build initially, and have you done any work to understand what the needs of the community, needs of society may be in 10 years or 20 years that may influence that percentage? In other words, do you think people are going to be looking for smaller square footage, bigger square footage, more high rise, more, just anything? Have you put any thought into that at all?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll be happy to take that question. To you, Mr. Mayor, I think we have started to preliminarily look at what the housing typologies could be like, and it's something that we are investigating further. But off the top, what I can say is that we aren't just coming in with large square footages. We're looking at units from anywhere from 600 square feet to 1,000 square feet to 1,200 square feet. we're looking at typologies that you could either choose to have a single unit in it, or you can have a single family home with a floor plan of 2 units to help subsidize the cost to move in. We're looking at different product types where you have options to age in place that are reasonably priced, that are going to be able for individuals in the market to come in, and it's going to be affordable and it's going to be viable. We understand that the county and across society, to your point, the costs and the interest rates are through the roof. We're in this industry every single day, and it's important for us to make sure that we're bringing dwelling types forward and units forward that are going to be able to help and accommodate the individuals who need the housing. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to provide housing for individuals that are in need of housing. We want to make sure that the county is somewhere where not only the existing generation can be here and live, but we're also trying to make sure we provide for that next generation. And that's at the top of our thought process through this all, which will lead to a wide range of dwelling types, whether it's townhouses, stacked townhouses, bungalow townhouses, single detached homes, all of the above. We are investigating to make sure that we are satisfying the market and the needs of these individuals, so they are able to take part in the Base 31 development.
Okay, thanks. It was the word typology that caught my eye in the report, but thanks for that. I know it's very early days. Can't forecast quite that far ahead, but I appreciate the answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Grasso, are you available yet? No. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, hi, thank you for your presentation. And I have a couple of questions regarding first item 2.5, and also I'd like to echo the language regarding affordability, that the marriage to income is far more effective for this community than the expression of a market percentage. So, and then also regarding the proposed official plan amendment, I had some concern regarding the language under implementing policies that council shall contemplate the provision of 5%. And I'm just, and perhaps I'll save that question for staff later. I think I will actually, I'll reserve that. And just get to the alteration of 2.5 with the inclusion of the second sort of nucleus for commercial in that area. That lies in contrast when I reviewed the section 2.5 in the official plan, or in the secondary plan, which I'd not done for some time. This lies in direct contrast to that, and amending it will be very loud. Oh boy, goodness. Never listen to your own voice, it's horrible. Amending it changes it radically. So this section 2.5 says that we focus all that Main Street Picton is our centerpiece, and we had a number of comments in the comments from the public throughout this very impressive process of public engagement, and credit to this team, the Base 31 team. It's been a tremendous process, and I've been very impressed. But I'm interested to hear what checks and balances are there to assure the public that those words have muscle behind them, that this will not be in any way set up to detract from Main Street. I believe the intent exists, certainly, but there are no sort of details attached to it. For example, elimination of retail spaces over a certain square footage, or like the specificity is not there. And I'm wondering if that would be something that could be included comfortably, to have a specific cutoff line for maximum square footage for retail spaces, for example, or to eliminate the potential for drive-throughs of any sort. Examples like that.
Well, I think you're quite right. The intention is to continue to complement. I mean, I think the we love the county because we love the Main Street. We would not want to detract its economic vitality. We think the additional, as Mr. Lewis mentioned, the additional population will help from a four-season perspective, bring new vitalities. And the work that the partnership's done in terms of attracting, so it has a lot of employment already in place, and it's been focused on culture, it's been focused on entertainment, it's been focused on bringing the artisans and things like that. That's the focus that we want to ensure that it has that kind of focus. I don't think there's any intention for drive-through. That I didn't even think about it, but that's something probably through zoning that can be dealt with. So because it's so important, like if Main Street work well, Base 31 works well. Base 31, like we wouldn't want to cannibalize, something that is so precious and so wonderful here. So that's our intention.
Certainly, and I absolutely believe that. And I want to, I haven't sort of gotten into it, but I must say, much of what I hear is very encouraging. That said, I've learned in the past that things change over time, and having things written in stone is a little more secure than having things written on paper sometimes. I mean, I'm not proposing we get chisels, but soft language or less specific language has proven to be problematic in the past. And I still do think there's room to be open to considerations like that. It might be something that we can figure out going down the road, but I'm very concerned that if we don't look at sort of having some, that at this point in time, if we're not at least thinking about some of the conditions that we're going to be looking for in the future and clarifying them, I think we're making a mistake. And I'll save the rest for when we discuss later.
Councillor St. Jean and then Councillor Grosso.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So I don't have the same concerns that Councillor McNaughton does about the conflict of transferring commercial business and that conflict with the Main Street. I've had many conversations with business owners. Yes, there are some that are concerned, but as a rule, they're not, and simply because of the fantastic forward-thinking relationship that Base 31 has had with the Picton BIA. And I think that's reflected in the fact that there were no comments or no concerns, sorry, in the report. And I expect that will continue. I trust that will continue, and as does the BIA Board of Management. But that's not my question. I just wanted to state that. So everybody's focusing on the housing component. To me, it's a large part of it. It's not the only part. And I will have much more to say on that later, but for now, I will stick to the housing because that's where everybody seems to be talking about. So in the initial phase, you've mentioned that there are going to be a broad range of housing types. But in the initial phase, that is directly tied to the available water or servicing allocations, what is your vision for that specifically? Are you looking, is the group looking at, I'll call it apartment buildings? Is it back-to-back splits? What type of, and I did see what the density level proposed is, but just telling me what a density number is doesn't tell me what you're actually going to build. So I guess that's what I'm trying to find out, that initial phase that this will immediately address, not the 30-year down the road stuff. Today, what are you planning on starting to build in 2026?
So the first phase, through Mr. Chair, so the first phase would be the first component would be a purpose-built rental building of approximately 100 units that would be included. And in that Village A would be a approximately 375 homes that would be also built within that phase. 5% of the offering of both the home and of the rental units would be in that will be defined as affordable and attainable. And then so that's the first phase. So it's approximately 22, it's about close to a quarter, 22%, 22.5% of the units being proposed as rental, which is one of the big needs that we've heard. Like throughout all our discussion, it's something that is just doesn't have a lot. So that's an initial phase.
Follow up, Mr. Chair. Oh, and this is
maybe a follow up.
Guess there's more to come.
Sorry, just to provide more detail there, in the first phase, we are also looking at these stack typologies and these back-to-backs and traditional townhouses, which are going to be of smaller square footage. And there are some singles associated with what we're looking at in the initial phase, but we're not looking at an 80 or 90% unit type of singles. We're understanding what the market currently needs. We are contemplating as low as 600 square feet in our initial phase. We are contemplating many more townhouses than single townhomes through this phase because, like I said in my previous answer, that we're looking to allow people to get into the market. We've been able to go out to the community and speak to many people in the community to understand what they are needing at this time, and that is what we are trying to provide. So on top of the rental and on top of the affordability, this goes to the 5-part housing strategy that we keep referencing, is that we aren't here just saying it's 5% only. It's 5% based on the definition that the province and the county and that we agree on with you guys. But on top of that, we are providing market housing that is much more affordable than your regular market housing that you're used to seeing with these unique typologies and the smaller square footages. And we are promising or doing everything we can to bring these forward in the first phase.
And my follow-up? It's just a follow-up to the...
Councillor Grasso.
Sorry, did you say Councillor Gross? Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I guess this message is for Mr. Marchese. Taking it that, first home buyers, it's very hard for them to get into the market. And even with affordable homes, whatever that price may be, is there some way, somehow that, well, first of all, I'm a big fan of Base 31. I think it's going to be amazing for the county. And if it's 30 years, it's 30 years. But all in all, I'm very confident that it's going to be a great project for the county. But is there a way for the base to help first-time homeowners, maybe to provide a like a vendor take-back mortgage at a reasonable rate, maybe better than the bank is offering these days?
Through you, Mr. Chair. It's something that we can take back, Councillor Grosso, and have a discussion with internally. We aren't at that draft plan stage where we are ready to build. So we don't know what the market when we go to sales is going to look like, but it's a valid question. And we are always happy to explore different options to help any individual get into the market and create a place at Base 31. I don't have a detailed answer for you in confidence, but it's something that I'll take back to the team and have a further discussion with them on it.
Yeah, please, if you could, because I think that would go a long way with county people that are looking to stay here in the county, and it would make a huge difference for sure. Thank you.
Councillor St. Jean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Some follow-up to the conversation we were having there, the responses you were giving. You mentioned the apartment, rental units being part of that first phase, which thank you. I think that's great that you've recognized that dire need in our community, as has our Affordable Housing Corporation. So my follow-up along that line has to do with has there been any discussion or consideration of entering into some form of a P3 arrangement with the Affordable Housing Corporation? As chair of that corporation, I know that the board and our staff have been working with others without saying too much. So I'm interested to hear something from you about that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, as part of our 5-part housing strategy, one of them is to engage in creative partnerships, including not-for-profits, and the housing corporation would be one of them. We are happy to have all these types of conversations to help establish a methodology and a route to create rental housing, market housing, affordable housing at the most rapid rate possible. And if that's a conversation that we can have, we're willing to have them. We've had some conversations with the Housing Corporation already at this point. Again, we are trying to establish a framework here today to bring all these things forward. We are committed to do everything in our power to help this go on, and we would be happy to have a conversation in that regard to see if there is an agreement that is possible or a partnership that is possible to bring this forward at a quicker and a more efficient rate.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Maynard.
Thank you. Thank you for your for your presentation. Just when we look at the actual amendments, if you could give me your take on why the amendments to 2.5, the mixed-use area, and then also the additional mixed-use area category of 2.5.4 to your development area. Why is that why is that required?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, Councillor Maynard, could you reference the page number for us in the package?
Oh, I'm just looking at the details of the amendment right on the, kind of in the summary here. Let me see if I can, page 6 is what I'm looking at. Details of amendment. 4 bullet points. The first 2 are, maybe that's a question better suited to staff, but I just thought I'd get your opinion on it.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Okay, so the amendments, which is really the heart of what we are dealing with this evening. There's one on the maps, I understand, the transportation infrastructure, removing the airport, I understand. The Schedule F, secondary plan service area map of Picton Urban Center, secondary plan with secondary plan to redesignate the entire site as service area 1 from service area 3.
That is an amendment to, through Mr. Chair, it's an amendment to indicate that this is in the next phase of servicing.
Okay.
That is bringing it forward as a priority area.
And then the importance to you of the next one, to amend section 2.5, mixed use areas.
Yeah, so that section is it's to in effect bring forward the concept that is into the area concept plan, which is the area about being a mixed use area. That's so the revitalization area will have a mix of employment, entertainment, culture, residential. So it's actually to bring what is as being the intention that's been shown through your concept plan as part of this amendment.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to hear you articulate it. So for some of it's for those watching.
One question that there's no way. The one question I've got, it's actually 2, and that is, first of all, what has been put forth by the county so far? Are you agreeable in that?
Through Mr. Chair, we do agree, we do support the recommendation that are being brought forward by staff.
And the one question that I think we're in the weeds a bit before we pass or deny what you're asking for, but if you take a single dwelling, put a apartment above the garage, it could be considered affordable housing, but how do you see that as somebody publicly owns it? You can't put something against their deed, can you?
Through Mr. Chair, I think you're talking about the secondary suite that may be, which is something that is, is already permitted. And now in terms of that would be typically, it would be a unit that is attached to the primary residence. So it would be a rental or a granny flat or a laneway house. That would be, that is part of the intention of the kind of offering that we're looking to integrate.
Just one further up to that. Once again, if you put an accessory dwelling on a place and attach it, is it affordable or isn't it? Because obviously you would charge a bigger price for that accessible house. And yet, what guarantee do you have that the person that buys it is looking at it being affordable or what they can make out of it? Because it's very important when you're setting up.
Through Mr. Chair, yeah, I understand the nature of the question, and it's a very valid question. I think it's something that we can take back. It's always something that is when it's under someone else's ownership. It's something that is very difficult to control specifically. But obviously, if a unit is smaller, it's attached. I mean, it is it has the potential to be affordable, but you're quite right, there's a lot of details that would need to be figured out.
Councillor Englesdorfer.
Yeah, thank you. Circling back to the service area 3 to service area 1, what does that commit the county to? Because again, I feel like we're determining the outcome of an EA by committing that, or making that change, committing that entire property to being service land.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think that I will probably invite Mr. Lewis to provide a bit more detail, but what it means is that the land that is being provided here it's an area that is that where services are being bring as kind of a priority. But as Mr. Lewis mentioned, this is all conditional to the master servicing plan. As was mentioned, we won't receive permits if we don't have actual service. So that's why, for example, in the first place, there's, as part of the interim servicing agreement, the partnership is investing 10 million to actually start to continue the evolution of base 31. So so again, it is not that it's something that will continue through the draft plan, through all the various phases, that they will continue to be the discussion about when and if and when the servicing becomes available.
Quick follow-up. So then does it make sense to look at the OPA in phases instead of all as one big chunk?
With Mr. maybe Lewis?
Chair, Mr. Michaud was actually prepared to answer that question, the councilor's question, since it was referred by the applicant.
Michael Michaud, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to members of the committee. In the secondary plan, we do have areas, servicing strategy area 1, 2, and 3. And those are simply areas that have been demarcated for what the plan thought in 2015 were the lands that were going to go first, being service strategy area 1. Those areas that would be sort of medium-term development, so service area strategy 2. And then those that would be developed, 30, 40, perhaps 50 years down the road as service strategy area 3. That was the thinking at the time. But what tends to happen is some of those developers that are in service area 1 don't want to develop. So as development continues on, other developers are ready to go, maybe a developer with a deeper pocket or a developer with a different strategy that comes forward and then wants the ability to get towards allocation so they can actually build product The perfect example in our community in Picton is the Anderson subdivision at the end of, I think Century Road, or I can't remember if it's Paul Street or something, near the high school anyways. That's been on the books since the 80s, but never developed. It's in Service Strategy Area 1. So why should we continue to hold potential for allocation for that developer who's not willing and not nearly ready to develop when somebody else already is? That's why we allow official plan amendments. That's why they're allowed under the Planning Act to change the official plan. And that's why we're here tonight, to look at moving this from Service Strategy Area 3 to Service Strategy Area 1. So that does get the ability to go and compete for the allocation that currently exists within our plants, or capacity rather.
And through Mr. Chair, to continue the question that was asked by Councillor, is the having the area in Area 1, it gives us a certainty as terms of the entire framework. But I always mention every phase of development will continue to have to provide a servicing study, prove the capacity, see the improvement that has to be done. So it will continue. This is, again, it's something that will continue to be monitored, to be studied as every phase of developments comes forward.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Maynard.
Yeah, so not to the deputant, but just to make sure that we will have a chance to ask staff questions that arise from this conversation, but also those that arise from the comments from the public. Yes.
Through the chair to Councillor Maynard, absolutely, that's our process. When you officially put this on the floor, you'll be able to ask staff additional questions.
Thank you. Now I believe we have some deputations before us. If we could move on with that. The first one being Stephen Willis. And I would mention to you, you have 10 minutes.
Councillor Pennell, if you look at your sheet, you'll just, where it says public.
Oh, excuse me.
If I may, I'm still here.
I would say the applicant was given 10 minutes. Would anybody like to accept this? Yes. Yep. Okay. Been approved by a majority.
No, sorry, Councillor Pennell, he is on the list of speakers. Tim Jones is on the list. So we'll start with Dorothy Bothwell. She's number 1 on our list.
Yeah, I'll remind you, you have 5 minutes, Dorothy.
Thank you, Councillor, and members of Planning Committee. PEC community partners are to be commended for their vision to animate the site's significant heritage and redevelop Base 31 into a vibrant community. I want to say that first of all. This OPPA before you presented tonight must be carefully considered by Council. I did provide my comments to all of Councillors prior to this meeting, so you have an opportunity to digest what I'm about to say. Base 31 will potentially double the population of Prince Edward County over the next 30 years. Under the purpose of the amendment, it states, amend all schedules and maps of the OPA and secondary plan of the official plan and secondary plan to expand the settlement area boundary and secondary plan boundary around the lands. The applicant has withdrawn the urban boundary expansion request for the rural industrial lands abutting Clark Road, as it does not comply with the PPS, yet Block 3 still shows on the official plan amendment in Schedule 1. In my mind, it should be removed to ensure it's clear that it's not included in the settlement area boundary and shouldn't be impacted by the the rest of the wording in the official plan amendment. It can be interpreted to be covered through a number of the different clauses within the official plan amendment if it's not removed, and it is outside the urban boundary. So therefore, I would say none of those, none of the amendments should be reflected on Block 3. Currently, county staff are recommending the urban boundary expansion of Block 1, which is also designated rural industrial, included in the OPA, and they call it a minor technical correction. With the current provincial restrictions and concerns on urban boundary expansions, regardless of the justification that's for a stormwater pond and infrastructure that would be acceptable in a rural designation, was this parcel actually reviewed by legal or the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing to determine if there would be provincial support for it? And I'm saying this because I'm aware of another municipality, one that I'm familiar with, that is undergoing a similar urban boundary expansion request for a technical correction, and they're having to go through some hoops and whistles to do it. So I'm just concerned, have all the I's and T's been dotted to put this into the official plan amendment? A little concerned about that. The rationale for the Housing Accelerator Order was to address urgently needed affordable housing. That was the rationale to put it through and bypass all the other public engagement. Yet the developer and the official plan amendment only use the wording contemplate the provision of 5% of all housing units for affordable or attainable housing. If council is committed to providing livable, affordable housing, the official plan language should be amended to, at a minimum, to read, council shall require that a minimum of 5% of all housing units across a site are affordable or attainable. The official plan amendment amends Schedule F of the secondary plan service areas map to designate the entire site as Service Area 1 from Service Area 3. This redesignates the site to bring to being fully serviced from no services. And that's why I said Block 3 should be out as well, because you can't service something that's not in the urban boundary. So that language is a little bit gray, needs to be amended, needs to be looked at. And again, approving the official plan amendment also approves the supporting documents that the applicant provided, which is the area concept plan and the master servicing plan that they put with it. If you read those closely, they are saying that, and you're approving that area concept plan and the master servicing plan they put in there, which does say that the Wellington regional plan will be required in order to fully develop the lands. And it's stated in the most recent November report as well. So when you're talking about fully servicing it, you're accepting all the supporting documents that go with this official plan amendment. You're basically committing to providing the servicing that they're asking for within those documents. So that's my understanding of it, and I'm just giving you my interpretation. So approving the OPA as worded will commit the county to providing a new regional Picton water treatment plant to support this growth. And that's, again, in all the documents they use to support their own planning justification rationale. Shouldn't council have the full forecasted costs and recommendations from the regional water servicing class EA before undertaking such a significant commitment? I'm just thinking too, West Meadows is another one, Port Picton Homes, when you look at, where they've changed it from a service level 3 to a 1. They just did it for West Meadows, Port Picton, but they've demonstrated that they're building, and this was an extension of one of their development areas. So I see that as the timing worked with how they were showing they're progressing with their development, and then this parcel of land for West Meadows was changed for their servicing from 3 to 1 as well, in order to continue to proceed with that development. Has council had time to review the details of the interim servicing agreement forming part of this official plan amendment? I think this is the first night you've seen it, and it was already approved and it's gone through, but I mean, have you digested it? The report states that the site can be supported with the necessary infrastructure to be developed over time and phased with development. How will the approximately 100 million in new infrastructure to support this development be paid for? Ratepayers are not to shoulder the costs needed to service new development. There is no area-specific development charge bylaw in place for Picton. There is no funding set aside in the 2024 budget to do the development charge study. Even though it's been talked about, nothing's been done. Without an area-specific development charge bylaw in place, there can be no front-end agreements to ensure that new development in Picton pays their fair share of the $100 million or more needed to build the infrastructure to support this growth and this development. Base 31 will only be subject to connection charges for water, wastewater for the units that they build. Phasing the development does not change the fact that ratepayers will bear the brunt of the upfront $100 million infrastructure and debt servicing costs to put this in the ground. Where is Council's commitment to put these tools in place before approving this official plan amendment?
Excuse me, I'll remind you got about 30 seconds left.
Of my 5 minutes? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
The Picton Secondary Plan, Section 3.2, Services and Utilities, implementing policies clearly state that the provision of all municipal services proceeds in an economically viable manner, ensure that the decision-making process for allocating water and wastewater servicing capacity considers the following: responsible fiscal management and matching the financial benefit of planning approvals with the financial commitments necessary to construct and expand municipal infrastructure. I would ask Council to defer approval of this official plan amendment, to consider the changes requested, and to review the impacts of providing full servicing without having the financial tools in place to recover the costs of growth. I respectfully ask Council and this Planning Committee to take the time to get it right, exercise due diligence, and be fiscally responsible. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from around the table or at home? Seeing none? Next, we have Steve Sykes. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's already set up.
Hi, Steve Sykes. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, can you hear me okay now? Yeah, I tune into these meetings at home, and often I can't hear people, so I hope I can be heard. Thanks very much. Apparently I have 5 minutes, and so it goes really fast, so I'm going to try and talk swiftly, but also make some good points. So as Council considers this amendment, the reason I'm here, I actually looked up what it meant to be, what's an OPA anyway, right? Because I'm a resident and taxpayer, but I'm not really up on all the government things. So it says you need to be thinking about how the plan might affect you and your property and your community. So today I'm going to talk about traffic, specifically vehicle traffic choke points. And I call them choke points because I choke every time I drive through them in the summertime. And they represent bottlenecks. And bottlenecks are going to be pretty important to address as Base 31 moves through the various phases. So the county traffic patterns, I looked at the documents that were submitted on behalf of the applicant, and the methodology used to, sort of forecast traffic patterns and things is a methodology that originated, I think, with the Highway Capacity Manual. It was first published in the 1950s. It talks about capacity of vehicles on laneways and different roads and that sort of thing. It talks about peak hour methods and that sort of thing. The county traffic patterns are not really typical morning and evening rush hours that you would find in a normal city. And so as I looked through the document, I kept looking for current data, like recent data, right? Like there's a lot of data from 2017 and bits and pieces from other years, but I moved here in 2020 and I noticed a distinct difference. So these are the traffic choke points that I think are pretty key. The document itself goes into great detail about a number of different intersections, but I've highlighted 5 here, 3 to the north and 2 to the west. And to get anything from any supplier north or east and west, to base 31, particularly in the construction phase, you're going to have to go through one of those 5 intersections. There's no doubt about it. And in some cases, you have to go through multiple ones. And so if you look at the ones for the north, the ones that people know about, Town Hill intersection, the corner of Bridge Street and Union, and the corner of York Street and Church Street. And from the west, we have Sandy Hook Road and County Road 10, and then we have County Road 10 and 22. So if you're getting anywhere from the west or the east or the north to base 31, you're going to have to go through there. So this is a graphic from the applicant's material, and it's great, and it shows the proposed new development roads for the interior of the development and the perimeter of the development, but you have to get to and from the development. So I think a lot of attention has been put on how people are going to move around and through the development, but not necessarily to and from the development. And this is a slide that I put together, and this is a slide at 150% magnification from the project documents talking about County Road 10 and 22, and also County Road 1 and 10. And it's kind of fine print. It's intended to say these are the future volumes for 2031 on peak. I couldn't read it, but anyway, I did a close-up for one of the intersections. This slide now is enlarged 500%, but I still don't understand what it means. So one of the things that I think council might want to consider is having a pre-project baseline of what's going on in these choke points. And there doesn't seem to be much data available on the counts of cars, motorcycles, farm vehicles, trucks, RVs, buses, heavy trucks, school buses, tractor trailers, that sort of thing, for the period between Victoria Day and Labor Day. And as I learned once I moved to the county, that's what it's all about, right? Like Victoria Day to Labor Day, it's a totally different place in terms of traffic, right? Like I was at the Transportation Master Plan meeting last night, and the people from Stantec were there, and I talked to them, and they said, gee, we've never been here in the winter. It's a ghost town. And I said, well, yeah, but come back on Victoria Day or maybe in the Quebec construction holiday time, and you'll see quite a big difference. So I don't necessarily think these stats exist, and I'm talking about hour by hour from 8 to 6 in the morning sort of thing, Monday to Saturday. I actually don't think anybody's ever counted the traffic, in detail. And I think that it's possible to do so. And I would like to suggest respectfully that the applicant might want to, volunteer to do this. I know that they're going to spend a lot of money, but the collection of data like this would greatly help the Picton Settlement Area Transportation Master Plan, which is, what we went to.
Remind you, you got 1 minute left.
That's great. So we have to go beyond the peak hour morning and evening estimates, right, at a single point in time. And I think we need the peak hour, to be set aside. We need hour by hour, day by day for peak season in the county. Because basically, taxpayers and residents already have major traffic concerns. That was alluded to earlier. And I think it's a great vision, but we need baseline traffic counts for what it looks like today and in 2024. Because as we get to 2025 and 26 and 27, if things jam up the way they might jam up, then I would really think it would be very sad for the Base 31 partnership to be blamed for all of that. Somebody earlier said something about there's already existing concerns, which is true. But without having baseline data for what the current situation is, you don't really have a way to quantify what it looks like down the road. So thank you very much.
Any questions from at home or around the table? No questions? Thank you.
Good evening. Through
Thanks.
you, Mr. Chair.
You're reminded 5 minutes.
Thank you. It's great to be here tonight. My name is Tim Jones. I'm one of the partners at Base 31, and I'm here to seek your support of the staff recommendations to approve our official plan amendment and also to give councillors an opportunity to ask questions. Projects like this are all about confidence and momentum, and so that's going to be a bit of a theme in my talk tonight. Before I share a few words about all of that, I want to start by thanking the county for all the hard work over the last couple of years. I mean, it's been, 2 years since we arrived on your doorstep, and there's been a lot of work. And so I want to thank the staff, especially for their collaborative approach. From the very beginning, the mayor and members of council have made us feel very welcome in this community, and we've been greatly encouraged. Before I share a few words, greatly encouraged by your solution-oriented folks. Your encouragement has given us confidence to invest tens of millions of dollars. This council approach, this county approach has set the stage for what I think is going to be a very long-term, very productive relationship where we can work together to truly build a better place to live, work, and to play. And as this is a public forum, I also want to acknowledge the engagement of over 1,000 people in this process through surveys, through meetings, through our big idea fair that happened last year, as well as the official public meeting. Their input, I believe, has made our project, it's helped shape our project and made it stronger. I also want to really underscore the very long-term nature of our work. We're not here for the next 5 or 6 years and then moving on to the next project. We are here for 20 to 30 years and beyond. And we believe that by building out the villages that are contemplated in our plan, we're going to become one of the major sources of long-term stable growth for the county. And that long-term stable growth is going to be a way to pay for the water and wastewater facilities and other forms of infrastructure that this community so clearly needs. And already we're investing $10 million just to bring water and sanitary up to the site, and that'll be installed before next spring. Also to address the critical shortage of housing supply and what we believe is really one of the most comprehensive housing strategies that the county's ever seen. To create thousands of jobs and to support the creation of things like schools and daycares and other forms of social infrastructure, to support parks and recreation and sports facilities. Just the housing and the related services alone, when taken together, could themselves form one of the largest economic development initiatives I think that the county's ever seen. But that's not all of it. At the core of the heart of our project really is the Base 31 revitalization. And we believe this 70-acre district is on its way already to becoming a globally significant cultural tourism destination. It stands, we appreciate how important it is. It stands as a monument to the enormous battle during World War II to protect freedom and democracy, to combat the genocide. And, if you look, we think that it's so essential to preserve this and to tell this story because even today, the battle for these things isn't over. We're reminded that almost every day. Our site is a place that's full of stories. So many, many stories related to the 30-year military history of the site. We also are part of a 250-year loyalist history and 12,000 years of Indigenous ownership and stewardship of this land. So we're really committed to telling all of these stories, and I'm happy to elaborate further on that if people have questions. As I've said, we've made significant investment already in the adaptive reuse of the many heritage in the buildings on the site, in landscape transformation, in placemaking and public art, in programming for people of all ages, including children and youth. Just last year, in our second year, we attracted over 40,000 people to our site, and 64% of those people came from outside of the county. We're going to continue to invest sort of in concerts and events and storytelling, growing the richness and diversity of offerings from year to year to make Base 31, we think, will become one of the most unique and hopefully visited places in all of Canada.
You've got about 40 seconds.
Okay.
left.
This Saturday will mark the 2 years to the day since our partnership purchased the site. We've formed a lot of partnerships since then, over 150 different partnerships, collaborations, community investments. Through our local procurement program, we've engaged another 130 trades and suppliers. As has already been talked about, our community engagement process has been very extensive. I want to be clear that this co-creation and this engagement isn't going to stop tonight with the approval, hopefully, the approval of our official plan amendment. This is who we are and how we work, and we're going to be committed to working with you in the community as we move forward. So just to sum up, I want to say we are working on a very large canvas that gives us both a phenomenal opportunity for the future. How can we work together to build truly a four-season economy? How can we attract a post-secondary institution to our county? How can Base 31 be a catalyst for things like transit solutions and farm-to-table connections? How can growth not only support the renewal of infrastructure, but also help to address the many other challenges that this community faces? Tonight's an important milestone, but it's just the beginning. It's really sort of will allow us to get shovels in the ground by next year, has been talked about, to advance our first rental building, including some affordable rental. We believe that as working together.
Time is up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
I'd be horribly remiss if I didn't say this to you and your team and everyone here, but also to the public, that your Base 31 team has been brilliant. Your outreach to the community, your engagement with staff, with the stakeholders in the county, it's been wonderful, and I'm looking forward to it becoming even more wonderful. I forgot to ask this question of your earlier presenters, but you mentioned the word momentum, and that triggered this septuagenarian memory. Momentum, and we've been talking a lot about affordable housing. And I recall that, I think it was last fall of 2022, there was a conference at the Aga Khan Museum that brought the development community together. I think it was a fundraiser initially for Toronto Sick Kids, and I think it was like $300,000 or whatever was raised there, which is a success in its own. But one of the comments that I noted was about this notion of delay when it comes to development. So we got affordable housing, momentum as 3 words there. And I think the reference was that from one of the panel experts, that for every month of delay, that translates into $3 per square foot in additional cost for the finished product. So does that sound right to you? I mean, this is a year ago or more than a year ago.
Well, I can't speak to that specific reference, but I can tell you that sort of when our group purchased the site that we knew was designated for growth and development, we did that taking a huge leap of faith, sort of understanding that we're going to have to invest a lot of time and effort to do this properly, sort of to bring the heritage back to life, to advance the infrastructure in a place with no public water or sanitary connections. And it would be a major setback for us if we learned tonight that the county wanted to say, let's take a break and work out all of the details, sort of until those things are, and we'll just press pause on what we're doing. Developments like this require a lot of confidence on our part, but also sort of on the other side from the council to keep moving with an understanding that the process is going to allow us to figure these things out as we go. There are, most importantly, that the infrastructure, without the allocation of infrastructure, we're not going to be able to advance to future phases. So I guess what I'm saying is, it's important to us that we have your support as we move through this process, and we think that we've demonstrated an ability to kind of work collaboratively find the solutions that are required to do that effectively.
A little bit, yeah. I agree. I think the word momentum is very important, and let's say that expert on that panel in October 2022 was half right. Either way, especially if that lack of momentum imperils what we're trying to accomplish here in terms of affordability and sustainability. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hirsch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Tim, for your impassioned comments. You always are that way. I'd just like to support Councillor Roberts' comments without repeating them. But I have a question for you, Tim, in terms of we keep hearing everywhere, it seems these days, about the need for the developer to pay for the servicing up front. And as you know, we have good legal agreements with Caitlin and Wellington, and there's nothing in place in the Picton area yet. So you have indeed committed to the $10 million to get your initial servicing done, and that's fantastic. But could you speak to the partner's willingness to enter into like an area-specific DC arrangement and front-end payment for this eventual very expensive water system?
I'm going to turn to my colleague, if you don't mind, Chris Marchese, to answer that question because he is our expert in this area.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you, Councillor Hirsch, for your question. Our group is committed to continue to work with the county on upfronting agreements. We understand the cost that's going to be associated to bring this forward and to realize this vision and the long-term viability that's going to be behind it. And we are happy to have this conversation, and we are willing to discuss and potentially enter into agreements on upfronting this servicing and infrastructure costs accordingly.
Thank you. That's the certainty we need. Thank you.
Yes, I got Councillor Maynard and then the mayor.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask you if there was anything of significance that you did not get to speak about because your time ran short, but just significant points.
I guess the last point that I was trying to make before my time ran out was that, growth can be a really positive thing for the community. And we really believe that this project has the potential, if we continue to collaborate in the way that we have, that growth can be a real force for good in this community. And we're really committed to working with the county and with the community, because there's a huge part of this effort. When we started the project, we put the word out to the community that come help co-create this place with us. And this is a collective effort, not something that we can do on our own, including in the area of affordable housing, I might add. Thank you for that question.
Mayor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excuse my croaky voice, Tim. Seem to be suffering here, so I hope you can hear me. Excuse me. I've said this to you before, that your outreach to the community has set a very, very high bar for other developers to jump over with their own projects. That bar has been set very high, and you've done a magnificent job in your outreach to the community. And I sincerely hope that there is no objection to approving the amendment this evening. Base 31, Loch Sloy, Camp Picton, suffered through years of neglect, notwithstanding the heroic efforts of Jackie Burley and Steve Everall to keep it in a reasonable shape that I think enticed you and the partners to make this investment that celebrates its second anniversary next on Saturday, actually. Years of neglect, numerous tire kickers. I think we have in the ownership, in the partners, the municipality needs and wants, and a group, I think has already been demonstrated with the drive and imagination to make the site unlike anything else in the region or Eastern Canada, if not in Canada. Certainly demonstrated the commitment to the community through the hiring of local residents for staff positions, buying supplies from local suppliers, and significant financial investment in our social services and other organizations that that really need help. In other words, lots of investment in county causes. So I really just wanted to express my appreciation that you've already done so much already in a very short period of time. It's really quite staggering to believe that or understand that so much has happened in that site in a mere 2 years. And can never forget the 64% of people that come to this site are from outside Prince Edward County, and that is a significant boost to our businesses, hospitality, and otherwise. So I look forward to this moving forward and to the many years ahead that show so much promise after that period of time when nothing was happening up there, and the imagination that's in place right now and the vision for moving forward is really significant and great to behold. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Ferguson. We're just getting started.
Is there any other questions? Thank you. We'll move on to Chris Marquez. Hope I pronounced that right.
Councillor Pennell, he confirmed no further comments at this time, so we'll move to Greg Sorbera. He is on Zoom.
Go ahead, Greg.
I think I've unmuted properly. Can you all hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. I must say I very much appreciate the opportunity to say a word or two about Base 31. I have, in my involvement in development, not just here in Prince Edward County, but as part of a development family in Toronto, I've never seen anything quite like it. What they've accomplished in the first 2 years has been breathtaking. I haven't seen that kind of commitment to a community in any of the developments that I've seen anywhere in the Greater Toronto Area or beyond. So it is a great start. I'm just here to say I am very enthusiastic about this moving forward, and I'm urging Council to approve the official plan amendment so that the people at Base 31 can continue with their work. Just a few things that really excite me. Some of you may know that I am a colleague of Councillor St. Jean's on the Affordable Housing Corporation of Prince Edward County. And so for me, as part of my county life, housing is very important. The communities and the neighborhoods and the villages that will emerge at Base 31 are going to be very, very important to addressing the issue of housing. I mean, the housing is really a matter of supply and demand. We do not have enough supply. We have a great deal of demand. And you can talk to just about any entrepreneur along Main Street or anywhere in the county, and the issue is finding people who can work in their businesses, and those people need to find homes to live in the county. And I like the mix of housing that Base 31 is talking about. This is not going to be an exclusive neighborhood for those who have lots of money to invest in their front lawns. It's going to be a mix of housing that provides for a wide variety of people who have widely variations in their income. The second thing, and this goes to what Tim has accomplished in the first couple of years, this business about a four-season tourism destination for the county is critical to the county's future. And we've seen that already in what has been presented over the course of the past 2 years, but this will only expand. This military base is a huge part of Canada's history, and for it to come to life again in the way in which Base 31 proposes to do is just a very important part of the culture and the tourism of the county. One of the other things that really impressed me is that the land that is going to be developed is entirely suitable for the kind of housing and development that's going to be created. You know, there's a lot of talk, whether it's in Prince Edward County or in the Greater Toronto Area, about gobbling up farmland. Fortunately, we have land here that is suitable for the kind of housing that's going to be built. So just in sum, I just want to say that I see the development of Base 31 as transformational for the county. This council, as it approves this official plan amendment, will be planting a seed. That seed will grow a magnificent forest of, I would like to say oak trees, but a magnificent forest of homes and businesses, recreational facilities that will attract people from all over the province and beyond, but expand the quality of life that the people who live in Prince Edward County want and deserve. So I'm just urging you to go ahead as someone who has made significant investments in Prince Edward County over the past 15 years. I think that this investment will speak to the quality of the future that Prince Edward County can and deserves to have. There will be issues about traffic and about servicing and about development charges. You know, as you move to approve this, that there will be dozens of issues that need to be resolved, whether through negotiations with Base 31 or by council resolution. But those are what some people call the champagne problems, the problems that when they're resolved, add to the quality of life that the people in this county are looking forward to. So thank you for the opportunity for saying a word or two, and I urge you to move forward with this.
Thank you, Greg. Is there any questions at home or around the table? Seeing none? Thanks. Yeah, we have Jonathan Law.
No, Mr. Chair, we have Krista Dalby.
Okay. Krista Dalby.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. So my name is Krista Dalby. I'm the Artistic Director of the Department of Illumination. We are a not-for-profit arts organization that was founded here in the county in 2013. And I'm also a neighbor to the proposed development. I live on Clark Road, which is adjacent to the Base 31 site. Tonight, I would like to voice my support for Base 31's proposed development plan as an integral part of creating new housing, infrastructure, and economic development opportunities in the county. And I'd like to highlight their ambitious plans for supporting our creative community with the artistic components woven throughout the site. The Department of Illumination has been working closely with Base 31 for more than a year now, and we have witnessed them truly walk the walk of supporting arts and culture, engaging our organization as well as countless other artists. Now, this comes at a time when funding for the arts is truly being squeezed and many arts organizations find themselves in crisis. Not only have we found ongoing work opportunities at Base 31, but we have really been able to spread our wings and create some of our very best creative work with the support of Base 31's ambitious vision for the site. Base 31 has been a generous community partner to our organization, supporting our community-based work through event sponsorships and lending a helping hand on a number of occasions when we needed a good neighborly help out. So their presence in the county really has been a game changer for our company, giving us unparalleled opportunity, such as creating Night Watch, which is a large-scale immersive art walk that we launched this past June. And our relationship with Base 31 has only just begun, and I'm very excited to continue this relationship, and I'm excited to see what the future holds there. In addition to their support of arts and culture, I believe that Base 31 can be a major economic driver for our community through job creation and providing a much needed variety of housing to serve our community's needs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions around the table or at home? Councillor St. Jean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Krista. It's Councillor St. Jean here. So refreshing to hear from a YIMBY for a change. So thank you for that. So my question has to do, and you touched on how the economic benefits to the arts in our community, and a little more specifically to your organization. Any idea what that impact has been, whether it's through jobs, employment created, or just economic benefit? Can you put a value on that at all?
A value. Gosh, that's hard to say. I mean, you know, I don't know if I'm really at leisure to give dollars and cents of sort of the economic impact of, you know, our current work with them, but it really has been significant. Literally, without their presence, we would not have this type of opportunity. And you know, I belong to a network of rural creators throughout the province, and they would all just die for this type of opportunity that we've been able to afforded, of being able to create this really like large scale professional work with financial backing from an organization like Base 31 that is so visionary and is really trying to create something really unique. And I just feel so incredibly lucky that I chose Base 31 as a home, and then Base 31 has come along, you know, 10 years after I arrived here. So I really just feel so fortunate that they are a neighbor and such a great partner.
Thank you, and you're right, I shouldn't have asked that particular question, but I think your response pretty much covered enough of what I was looking for. Thank you very much, Krista.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any questions at all of anyone? Seeing none, we'll move on to Jonathan Law.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Jonathan and Michael were technical experts available to answer questions to support the applicant, so we can move on to get the item on the floor.
Yeah, before that, I'd ask if anyone in the audience would like to speak to this. Seeing no one, we'll Councillor Maynard.
Mr. Chair, before we put this on the floor and start the starter deliberations, we're at 2 hours and 15 minutes. I'd request that we have a slight break before we start deliberation.
Okay, we'll have a break for 5 minutes. 10 minutes. Thank you. Could you please return to your seats? I believe we had a motion by Councillor Roberts and seconded by oh. Please.
Thank you. This is a Roberts St. Jean motion regarding official plan amendment base 31. Report DS 77-2023 of Development Services dated December 13, 2023 regarding official plan amendment file number OPA-04-23 be received. That official plan amendment file number OPA-04-23 affecting all lands in the jurisdiction of the Corporation of the County of Prince Edward be approved, and that a bylaw to adopt an amendment to the official plan be brought forward to the December 19, 2023 council meeting for approval. Did I get it right, Madam Clerk? Perfect.
Okay, we're prepared to vote on the matter. No? Oops, excuse. I got everybody's attention anyway. Go ahead, Councillor Branderhurst.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for trying to be speedy and efficient. I would have a question that was brought up in from comments from the audience, which was there's a section of the development that is attached by Clark's Road that, from my understanding, was supposed to be green space and is not also in the urban boundary. So I'm curious on what was the idea with expanding the urban boundary to include lands that was supposed to, and still, from my understanding, still be considered green space.
Through you, Chair. So if you look at the current southerly boundary, the urban boundary, there's a tiny notch out which excludes this parcel of land in question. The intention from the area concept plan is that there are two purposes for this land. One is to retain as part of the green space network, but it's also the location of the major stormwater management pond, because the site draining, a good chunk of the site draining that direction, the water heads that way, so that's why there's a stormwater management pond to be located there, which is shown in the area concept plan. I will note that a stormwater management pond is permitted use in the rural area today, but it is about being transparent with everybody that that's part of the servicing structure for what's above and included as part of that. So it is not intended for development, and in my opinion, if they sought development in the future, it would require a subsequent official plan amendment in that space because it's shown for stormwater and green space.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor McNaught.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So regarding, I believe one of the commenters brought this up regarding on page 25 of the report, where within the draft bylaw or the draft OPA, the language under implementing policies includes council shall contemplate the provision of 5% of all housing, etc. Is there a reason the word contemplate was employed instead of ensure or require or mandate?
Through you, Chair, I did a sidebar with the applicants during the break, and I asked them if they would accept the change of that word to require, and they will agree to that. So with council's support, the words would change from contemplate the provision of 5% of all affordable housing units to require 5% of all affordable housing units.
Thank you. Does the clerk require a motion to that effect? Or certainly, I will make that whenever it's appropriate.
And Chair, if I may also, to be helpful to council, because my job is to be helpful to council, Councillor Maynard raised probably not as significant an earlier concern about the language as the primary area of growth of Picton. So we're proposing to change that as one of the primary areas of growth for Picton, which changes the tone of that and rather than singling it out. And I hope that that meets the intent. I think it's a minor change, friendly. The applicant has no concerns, and I can give this wording to the clerks.
Councillor Hirsch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, the previous comments have actually dealt with my issue, so I really just want to say that I support doing this official plan amendment as written and doing it tonight. Thank you.
Michael Michaud.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the rest of the members of the committee. We can make these changes and bring forward a revised OPA document for council's review if it goes forward for approval at council on the 19th. So we'll make any subsequent changes, including the removal of the lands that are currently zoned rural industrial and are outside of the urban area. If indeed the schedule still reflects that, we'll make that change as well. So whatever we bring forward will be resulting of all the changes that you make to this evening.
Thank you. Councillor.
Yeah, thank you. I think this might be for Michael. If we're putting this land into SA1, do we look at what is already in SA, or do we remove some from SA1? Like, are we doing a balancing act there? I'm just worried that we're committing to a whole bunch of SA1 land that, you know. So I guess do we look at removing some from SA1 in the urban center?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Councilor Andersdorfer. No, I mean that's all you're signifying through the SA1 is that you're going to service this prior to anything in what's in a 2 or a 3. That's all you're committing to. You're not committing to a time frame. The time frame will actually be determined on what the MSP says, and then what you as council determine are the right infrastructure that the county and council is willing to support and fund for development. You know, much like in Wellington, if there's developers and councils wish to enter into front-ending agreements so that monies are upfronted to pay for more infrastructure, then more lands will come on board in a quicker time frame. There'll be more competition from the developers in terms of housing, and perhaps a small price war, and that everybody will competing for similar to products that they might offer at different pay ranges, or much like we happen in bigger centers where we have a lot of developers that have similar products and people shop the market. If there's only one player in town, well, then the market is that player. If we have more players in the market, then more competition, and hopefully we have better pricing.
Thank you. Councillor Maynard.
Thank you. On that same topic, I'm wondering why, or if we could phase that moving into that phase 1, because I mean the applicant has said, you know, the final phase will be 25 or 30 years in advance. So why do we have to have it all in the service area 1 at this particular time? Would it require another OP amendment in 15 years or whatever when we start looking at when they start looking at the third phase?
So through you, Chair, I'm going to give a technical response. Mr. Michaud, who has more familiarity with this, might give a different, give you additional information. First of all, technically speaking, if it was broken apart into multiple phases, if the servicing for phase 1 filled up and you got on to phase 2, then maybe they don't, but if they wanted to advance it, they might have to bring forward an official plan amendment because of that diagram. That's a technical response. The second technical response, which I gave one of the other councillors, is that you're the only municipality I've ever worked for that has a schedule like this, in that you try to meter out the provision of servicing through an official plan schedule. Every other municipality I deal with does it at the time of subdivision approval, because that way you deal with things as they come in. As Mr. Michaud indicated, that there are people who've never moved on their phase 1 lands and other people who don't. So I'm in no position to give you recommendation on this, because it's not a practice I have seen used elsewhere. Right, and I believe Mr. Michaud should have a chance to either rebut what I said or qualify it.
Michael, or Mr. Michaud.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the Members Committee. I echo Mr. Willis's comments. This is indeed my first municipality as well that has this phase area 1, 2, and 3, and I understand the concept in terms of trying to manage growth and manage infrastructure development. But in a lot of ways, it's a poor way to do it because of the exact example I gave you. You have developers that'll hold on and say, I'm in my phase 1, or I'm in the phase 1 lands. I get allocation, I get the first crack at capacity, and then they sit on their hands and don't do anything. So in a lot of ways, it could tie the municipal council to just dealing with somebody that doesn't want to move forward and continues to hold on to these coveted lands, I guess. My thought process is that as we go through the different secondary plans for review, and as you know, we're going to start with Wellington this year in 2024. My hope is to do Picton in 2025. And quite frankly, my recommendation at that point in time would be to remove the 1, 2, and 3 designation, because I don't really understand it. I don't think it does what you think it wants it to do. So removing it, I think, is just the best thing to do.
So just as a follow-up to that, it's my concern, right, is that, we're like, see phase 1 and then, likely phase 2, but, we know that phase 3 is going to be far down the road. So why do we then give them, priority rating on something we know is going to be well into the future? And how do we affect that? Like, I'm trying to look at the map to see even, where, phase 1, 2, and 3, which page that was on. I wasn't really seeing them in phases, but I would really like to see that the final phase moved out of that service area 1. Because I don't even know, like, if we have the capacity to, if things don't go well, can we actually remove that once it's in place? It's going to be difficult.
So through you, Chair, I mean, when you establish the principle of development at a secondary plan level, you and under the provincial policy, you are establishing the intent to develop. Right. You have infrastructure master plans that allow you to phase in infrastructure master plans allow you to phase infrastructure at the pace you can afford it. There are mechanisms for developers to enter into voluntary or mandatory agreements with the municipality to advance payment on those. Your control mechanism at any point in time on the release of capacity that you have is the approval of a subdivision plan. You have control right to that point. If there is no capacity available in the system, the subdivision plan cannot be approved.
Then why do we use this format at all if it really has no, if it's not binding or it has no real effect? Is it just a signaling mechanism?
Chair, I cannot go back in time to 2015, never having been here, and it would never have been my professional advice to use a tool like this, because I don't believe in my experience working. I worked for a very large municipality before I was in consulting, and we never used anything like this, and I couldn't see the practicality of how it would play out on the ground. Your control is the draft approval of a subdivision. That's what you do have control over. That's what you do under provincial law have total control over, and that's normally where things are dealt with. So I apologize, Chair. I can't answer the councillor's question because it's not a mechanism that intuitively makes sense to me.
Councillor Roberts, then Councillor St. Jean.
Thank you. Can I do a fun fact? Just because a question that you asked Krista Dalby. about the impact of culture or cultural industries and economy. When I was fumbling around in that world, cultural industries account for roughly 700,000 jobs in Canada, a little over 20 billion in terms of contribution to our productivity. And if you lumped fishing, mining, forestry, and a couple of others together, it still wouldn't come to the amount that cultural industries on their own contribute to our economy. So, I, like Councillor Hirsch, and obviously since I moved the motion, I really support this. The Base 31 team has they've been incredible stewards of, and they've been very thoughtful, they've been very sensitive. We've all heard about the outreach they've done. You know, it's a landmark property, once known as Loch Sloy, that I think a lot of other developers would not be doing that. This is a very unique opportunity for the county. And this opportunity comes with jobs, childcare spaces. You know, I think we've sent the message pretty home in terms of affordable housing, attainable housing. We have a lot of expectations around that, and that requires some deliverables to satisfy that expectation as council. But it also comes with a major contribution to infrastructure. It comes with those four-season ambitions that I've heard forever in the county. That's what we need. But the thing that, and another thing that motivates me to support this motion as is, and to keep that momentum that was mentioned earlier going, is when you kind of sum up all the letters and emails from the business community, it's for me anyway, it kind of comes to, you know, Base 31 represents mindful economic development and prosperity. So I think that's how I see the contributions when you kind of add them up. And we need that. We need that. And I think all levels of government all over the world forget occasionally, some more than others, that you need to create wealth and means and growth in the first instance before that well-being and its resources can be redistributed. So without the economic nut of Base 31, I worry, given its unique opportunity that we're facing, that we will increasingly not have the wherewithal and the resources to administer, disperse, and address targeted relief for those who need it in the county, and our overall negative social indicators. We will be in a gradual, maybe precipitous, but gradual at the moment, decline in our ability to address that. We need growth. All economies need growth if their intention is to redistribute the bounty of that growth. So I'm supporting it, and I hope we pass it. Thanks.
Councillor St. Jean, and I just remind everybody, let's try to we got to make a decision, and I think we all know where we stand, hopefully at this point, and go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. So I do have a question, but I do wish, Chair, through you, to reserve the right to have comments, as others have, at a time after everybody has had their opportunity to ask questions. So thank you, Mr. Chair. So in a way, I'm a little concerned this question is maybe going to, as you referred to, get us into the weeds, but I think it's important that we all have a very clear understanding of the value or lack thereof of having SAs in this community. So having said that, my question, I guess, I don't know if it would be to you, Stephen, or Mr. Michaud. Maybe it's more appropriate that it's Mr. Michaud, as he's our director of planning, or manager of planning, sorry. So Michael, what, if any, use are the SAs, and what would be the repercussions to this municipality if they were removed from the designations in the Picton secondary plan?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor St. Jean. Removing the SAs would, in my opinion, wouldn't do much at all. You as council determine what gets built and when it gets built in terms of infrastructure. That typically gets done through some sort of development charges bylaw that's predicated on a master servicing plan where you know what pipes, what size pipes, what's pumping stations, what size pumping stations are needed, and what's how big a plant needs to be, all up front, so that you know as council what you need to build eventually to service the entire community that's within the settlement area. You don't have to build it all at once. That becomes a timing issue amongst council as to where you develop first and what you're going to build first and what makes sense from a budgetary point of view. Basically trying to find optimization of best dollars and most amount of development for that dollar spent. So that becomes the will of council on how quickly you want the pace of development to take place by putting funding towards the infrastructure and entering into agreements with the different developers in terms of front-ending arrangements or other like vehicles to help fund the infrastructure. It's not predicated on service area 1 and you're stuck with that particular area for the exact reason I keep mentioning, in that, you know, you get developers that will sit on that capacity and not utilize it. And then as council, if you stick to the word of the law, so to speak, in terms of the area that's allocated for service area 1, and you still have developers in there or a developer that does not want to develop, then they're holding back capacity that could be used for somebody else that might have some affordable housing in it, might have some other type of product that's more amenable to the community, but you can't get there because you have this policy in place where you have to develop the service area 1 before you go to a service area 2. To me, that doesn't make sense. You have the ability as council, through development charges, through your MSP, to come up with a plan to service the community in a cost-effective manner.
Okay, so thank you. That essentially the service area 1 designation here is meaningless. That's what I'm hearing.
In my opinion, yes.
Okay.
It's up to you guys on how you want to fund everything.
I look forward to the secondary plan being updated and that policy being deleted because it clearly doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Maynard.
Okay, from what we just heard, that if this can be changed during the secondary plan, but there must be some implications to us designating service area 1s and the potential to run into problems if we try and if somebody else is, you know, quicker and needs the water. And I still am not seeing even after these explanations, the rationale for designating all areas of that property as service area 1 at this time, because I worry that you know, pulling it back, if something, you know, if something happens or if it's, you know, 20 plus years in the future. On one hand, I'm hearing you say it doesn't really tie your hands, but then if it's not tying your hands, why is it even in the agreement? And is it totally acceptable to remove some of that from the agreement now? And I don't know if you've had a chance to talk to the developers on why is it even in here if it is it really enforceable if we can pull it back at any time?
Is there anyone who can answer that or approach an answer?
Chair, I'm going to try to answer some parts of it. So could I offer a bit of history? okay, I'm not a young man anymore. When I started my career, I worked for the Ontario Ministry of Environment, who in that day and age, early in my career, used to have servicing allocated at the secondary plan level for the entire secondary planning area, and you couldn't get the provincial approval of a secondary plan unless the entire area was all serviced. The province abandoned that approach. They changed it on their own because they were tying up too much land in areas exactly as Mr. Michaud describes, where people would go forward, people wouldn't, and then they changed the rules to allow municipalities, when they downloaded approvals and allowed you to approve your own things, they allowed you to allocate the capacity at the time of subdivision approval. Because it was an impractical, unenforceable, didn't work, tied up, forced municipalities. It's almost the flip of your question. It's like you're forcing yourself to provide capacity for someone, no one is going to use it, by having a designated area like that, rather than dealing with actual real applications, with subdivision applications where you can pace them out as you go, tie them to your infrastructure master plans, and approve them in order if you have capacity available at the time they're coming forward. So it's more of a just-in-time delivery of an infrastructure as opposed to committing yourself well in advance, which is what that policy does. So a province abandoned that approach for that very reason. So I'm not sure I'm going to give you the answer you want. I think if you would like me to go out do a sidebar with the applicant, I can do that. I'm here to serve council, but I wanted to give you that history just so you understood the context of where this has evolved over the years.
Any more questions? Councillor McNaughton.
Actually, I want to put forward that motion if now is the right time. Sorry?
Which?
Oh, sorry. Yes, amending motion. Is now acceptable, Mr. Chair? Thank you. It's actually a two-parter because the clerk has asked that I include the phrasing for the primary growth area of Picton. So it would read, if I can get a seconder, that the draft official plan amendment file number OPA-0423 bylaw official plan yeah, be amended as follows: to replace the phrase as the primary area for growth of Picton to as one of the primary growth areas, or one of the primary areas for growth of Picton, and to replace the phrase contemplate, or replace the word contemplate the provision of 5% of affordable and attainable housing to require 5% for affordable attainable units. So if I can get a seconder to put those on the floor, and I'm content to break them up if people need to break them up, but I think they're fine together. Pardon?
Councillor Roberts is second.
No, you can have it, Councillor Roberts.
You can fight over it. Okay, and I think it's already been explained adequately that these are just slight changes to allow staff the mandate they need to make adjustments.
Call the vote on it. All those in favor? That passes unanimously with the group present. Thanks. I don't know what I'd do without you. Thank you. Now we'll go back to the original motion. Oh. Yes. And that was moved by Roberts and St. Jean.
This is the original motion, Mr. Chair. The one in the report.
As amended.
Okay. I'd like to recorded vote. And I also like, if I could just make one.
Go ahead.
But I just want to make one comment. I want to thank Stephen Willis for the comprehensive report that has made this evening's proceedings considerably easier than they might otherwise have been. So thank you very much, Steve.
One final question by
Yeah.
Councillor Maynard.
So our staff said that they were willing to ask the applicants about the whether those service areas are really required, and with council's indulgence, I'd like to give them a few minutes to do that. I mean, it's not the intent to hold back any servicing, but just what the.
I'll have to ask Madam Clerk if that's appropriate.
Through you to the council, I don't believe that's appropriate. That would be changing an established process for one application on the fly. And the applicants have agreed with the application as it stands, so I would caution against that.
So now we.
Call the vote.
Then I would just ask that before the next meeting that conversation happens, before it comes
We're
back
going
for
to
final
now
approval.
call the vote. Questions, Councillor St. Jean?
Actually, Mr. Chair, I'd mentioned that I would, I reserve my rights to comments, and I would just ask that I could make a couple of comments right now. I will be very brief, I assure you. Okay?
Go ahead.
Thank you very much, sir. First of all, I'd like to say that in my entire life living here in Prince Edward County, this is the first development plan that I have seen that actually includes a complete plan for building a community. We have never seen that. Everything that comes to us is simply developments. It's houses. Typically, in the past, it's been an awful lot of the very same thing that is completely out of reach for most of our community. And I look at this project, Base 31, as complete in more than one way. It's not just about housing. It's about economic development. It's about moving our community forward. I've told many of you in the past that, I lived through the tough times here, the 70s, the 80s, and 90s. I don't ever want to see my community go back to that again. And I see Base 31 and all of the promise that I think it will bring will be good for our community. They have put massive investments in the community. In 2 years' time, they have done far more than anybody has ever done here as a developer and as an economic and community builder. I have much more I would say, but I'm just going to stop right there and say this is very important to the future of our community. It's important to my kid, and hopefully all of your children and grandchildren. This is the future of our community that's at stake here, folks. So I encourage everybody. I would really love to see a unanimous support for this because it signals to the investors who wish to come here to help us to develop our community that we are open for business and we are committed to making our community better. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now call for the